Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out the podcast. Hope you enjoyed David Duchovny's interview. I really loved that interview that we did. I did with him last week. And if you haven't heard it, check it out. Send it to your friends. It's frankly a really good one. He's really awesome on it. Before we get to my guest this week, a couple of things. I had a lanyard that I use to work at the Late Show. They give you a lanyard that you have to wear with your ID and stuff. And I spent 15 minutes looking for it the other day, and it ended up being around my neck. Yeah, I need help. I don't know what. It's just getting worse. It was around my neck, and I couldn't find it. I don't know if you've had that issue, but I think I need some kind of mental help. And secondly, if you're a tourist or any biker in New York City, just don't. It's worth global warming to eliminate bikes from this planet, because bikers don't adhere to the roads, the laws of the road at all. They blow through traffic lights when other cars are stopped. They go the wrong way in the bike lanes. 90% of them aren't wearing helmets. I was in the city 10 minutes. I just drove into the city, parked my car. I'm literally walking from the parking garage. Guy almost runs me over on a city bike, no helmet, going the wrong way, blows through a red light that he's supposed to stop at. Of course, me being me, I have to say something. So I'm like, you know, add a few choice words for the guy. Let's just put it that way. And that, it wasn't, hi there, sir. Could you please stop? It was a little more aggressive than that. And I said, you're supposed to stop. You guys want, because bikers want it both ways. They get really mad at people if you don't sort of adhere to every road rule and law that could potentially harm them, but then they get to do whatever they want. And I said to him, you're supposed to stop at the intersection. There's a red light. And he goes, oh, like you don't jaywalk. I'm like, you're a really shitty debater. That doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even match the argument. Well, my jaywalking has nothing to do with you. Anyway, I slashed his tires. But I was justified. So if you come into New York and you see me and you're on a bike, adhere to the rules and the laws of the road, or magically you're going to have a flat tire or two. All right. My guest this week, Randy Couture, 6-time UFC champion. Really cool conversation with him about... he's got a new movie out, and we talk about that, acting, being in the Expendables, fighting, MMA fighting, what makes him a great champion. We talk about some fighting technique. It's a really cool window into that world of fighting. If you're into that world of fighting, I think you're going to really like this. And if you're not, I think you are, because it kind of does what I hope my podcast does occasionally, which is sort of bring stuff to people that they may not be interested in or think they're interested in, but then they find that they're interested in it. And I think MMA fighting, even if you're not a fan of it, the technique and the process behind it, I think is fascinating. So enjoy Randy, and don't ride a bike. It's not good for anybody. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. My guest this week is a 6-time UFC champion. You know him from the Expendables, movies, The Unit, Ballers, served 6 years in the military, former collegiate and Greco-Roman wrestler, 3-time Olympic team alternate. Randy Couture, great to have you on the show.
Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
You know, I list your credits and I feel like such an underachiever. Like I was a Boy Scout and I swam as a kid. Like that's it. I'm like, geez, I got to get my act together.
So I did the Boy Scout thing too up in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, I loved it. We used to go. I loved going camping. Our scoutmaster somehow knew somebody that had like an used giant military tent. It was 16 by 32, and we hoisted that thing up.
Wow.
Yeah, and I learned a lot. I learned how to do stuff in the wilderness. I thought it was great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. You got a new film out, The Manson Brothers Midnight Zombie Massacre. It's in theaters and on demand. Let's talk about that a little bit, because I really like this premise. This is like this cool mix of the zombie genre and the wrestling and wrestle. Like, how did this come about, and what attracted you to it?
Well, it is a very quirky, funny script. Certainly an action movie, but it has that tongue-in-cheek aspect to it that almost makes it a comedy as well. Mike Carey and Chris Margettis developed the script, and they kind of came from that regional league pro wrestling scene. So there's some authenticity there. Max Martini directed it. It is his second directorial opportunity, and he just did a great job. You might know him from The Unit, and I met him all the way back then doing The Unit, and we've been friends ever since. He was in Pacific Rim. He played the father to the Australian butthead that was in that movie. It was a lot of fun, but he did a great job. We got Adrian Passar, D.B. Sweeney, Boss Rutan, just a great cast of guys. And we had a lot of fun. We shot this about 3 years ago up in Santa Fe, and the pretense of the movie is some of these wrestlers are taking some Chinese growth hormone, and it turns them into zombies. Who knew we were foretelling the future?
Exactly. I was when I'm watching it, I'm like, did these guys make this like right after Wuhan? Like I was exactly thinking that it was. And you don't see it coming because like you're like, okay, well these are B-League pro wrestling guys taking steroids, and then I don't want to give too much away, just shit starts to happen. And it's like I'm watching it and I'm like, I love this because you can't really put this in a category. It's sort of a zombie movie, but it's also a comedy, but it's also a wrestling movie, and it's just it's really unique in and of itself.
Yeah, I agree. And the mind of Mike Carey and Chris, they just brought a really interesting flavor and this quirky view of everything that I think comes out in the script and in the film. And Max did a great job of capturing all that. Freddie Joe Farnsworth helped us do all the stunts and kind of figure out all the fight scenes and stuff. And he was amazing as well. So it was just a ton of fun.
How much are you involved, whether it's the Expendables or this, in the choreography of these fight scenes? What's the interplay between you, the director, the lead stunt guy? Because obviously, you have a lot of experience in fighting. How much do you contribute to that process?
Well, that's been one of the cool things. I think I got those early acting jobs because of that built-in audience coming from MMA. And then all the stunt coordinators and the directors want to tap into that. So they give me a little attitude. They ask me technical questions. What do you think? What about this move here or that move there? And you can't do a lot of that till you get in the actual space you're going to shoot in, because that space changes what you can do technically. So they give me a little attitude and put a little trust in me to come up with some things that will stay true to the film, but also be technically authentic. And so I have a blast doing that. Certainly had to learn to throw a movie punch, which was a little bit different than throwing a real punch. So it's been a fun process for me. My very first film was Cradle to the Grave with Jet Li, and I'm supposed to do this fight scene with Jet and throw a big right hand that he just moves and get out of the way of. Well, he didn't move. I ran him over, and the director about lost his mind. But, I threw a real punch, and thankfully I didn't club him. I just kind of ran him over. But he was very gracious. But it was, an eye-opener for me. I had to learn the line of the camera and how to sell a punch and do a lot of those things that are indigenous to movie fighting.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Like, you've done so much in so many different worlds, whether it's the Army, Olympic wrestling, obviously MMA, amazing. How has acting been for you in terms of the process, adjustments, challenges of it?
Well, I feel very fortunate. Obviously, athletics opened the door for movies for me back in the early 2000s with Cradle to the Grave. And then it was like, going to Oz and seeing behind the curtain, the guy pulling the levers, making all the smoke and fire. And so I was immediately intrigued with the process, but fighting came first. And so I kind of fit movies in around my fight schedule and training camps. And now since retiring in 2011, I can just devote my time and energy towards acting and getting more movie jobs. that made my transition and my decision to walk away from the sport a lot smoother. I had a new purpose. I had something I could focus on that's competitive, that's challenging, and that's fun. And it's a competitive industry. You're going out there and you're reading and auditioning for parts against a lot of other guys that are very talented and very good as well. And that's competitive. So it kind of filled that void that might have caused me some issues in that transition.
Did you? So you would, and you've gotten some sort of formal acting training as well, and worked with coaches and all.
Yeah, I took some classes early on, which were very strange and a little touchy-feely. But again, nobody was punching me in the face. I was pretty sure I was going to be just fine. Eventually, I ended up getting a coach and working one-on-one with a coach. Barry Primus is his name. And he's one of those guys. He's been a director. He's been a writer. He's been an actor. He's done stage and theater. He's done a little bit of everything. And him and I just clicked. He was recommended to me by a casting director. I was reading for a part. And she's like, oh, man, you should work with this guy. And so we ended up starting to work together. And he's been my acting coach now for, I don't know, going on 15 years, I think.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, I work with a guy named Bob Krakauer. I did the same thing. Like you take classes, but then you kind of need a person that gets you. And, you know, like Mike, like I like to improvise a lot, and he'll let me improvise within a scene, but not too much. And we have these code words. He goes, all right, you got to pull back. And what that means for me is like, don't get too off the script, right? Like bring what you bring who you are, bring Randy to it, but also know that you have to work within the structure. And I also imagine, I mean, listen, you've performed at the highest levels of massive crowds, but it is a little intimidating when you first start acting and you're in a little room with like 12 other actors and a coach, right? Like, and now you have to be this character, be yourself in a different way. That is kind of, I would imagine, a little bit intimidating and an adjustment for you.
Yeah. I think it is probably intimidating for most people, but, fighting, walking out of a tunnel in your board shorts to get in a cage and potentially get your ass knocked out sets the bar pretty high.
Exactly.
Intimidated.
Exactly.
I was like, I don't know these people and nobody's punching me in the face. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be okay.
Exactly. It's like, wow, you've never wrestled before, but you're very relaxed. Well, normally I have 50,000 people screaming and I'm getting punched in the face, so I can deal with this.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
What advantage does being a Greco-Roman wrestler give you, like, over and above an opponent in MMA? Like, you're known as a clinching ground and pound fighter, but obviously you have that skill set. What does that give you over somebody that's really maybe good in Taekwondo and someone that just doesn't have your skill set at that and at such a high level?
Yeah, well, there's three styles of wrestling in the United States. We have the collegiate style, what we call folk style, that you see in the schools and the colleges. That's our specific style of wrestling in the United States. And there's the two Olympic styles, freestyle and Greco. Greco's the classic style, goes all the way back to the ancient games. They kept it in the modern Olympics. Freestyle is more akin to the collegiate style we talked about. Of the three styles in the U.S., the Greco is the one that translates the best to MMA, in my opinion, because of the dirty boxing, the clinch fighting, the cage, the barrier, and the upright posture of Greco. You take judo. Greco-Roman wrestling is judo without the gi. You have to learn to hang on to the nooks and crannies in the human body to throw them and control them. And so I think that's why. And there's an intensity of body-on-body contact in Greco the entire match. There's no separation. When college, guys back up and post and stay out of engagement. In Greco, you're literally chest to chest, pummeling and scrapping for positions and ways to score. And so I think that a particular intensity and mindset, and then that posture translates to MMA very, very well.
Was there a skill set in MMA that was difficult for you to master, or that you really didn't ever master that you wish you could have?
Well, I knew going in the two things I had to focus on was, one, the striking. I'd never done any real official striking of any kind. So I had to learn how to box, how to kickbox, the Western kickboxing, Savate, Muay Thai. Those were all things I played around with and pulled from even, some Kyokushin karate and, doing a bunch of drills and learning how to kick from that style as well. The other thing, obviously, I had to learn was the jiu-jitsu. As a wrestler, your back is the last place you want to be. So learning to operate off my back and figure out what these jiu-jitsu guys were doing and the traps they were setting and what the submission positions were was another big journey for me. And both those things were foreign to me. I had the most fun learning the striking, especially the Muay Thai, and learn the hard way. And, Pedro Hizel, the first time I fought him, I think he kicked me 14 times in my left thigh.
Ugh.
My thigh swelled up and turned black. I had trouble walking back to my room after that fight. So I had to learn, nobody had ever really kicked me before. So I had to learn, to check a kick and to defend that and use that as another layer of offense as well. So that was probably the biggest learning curve for me, was the striking.
So I asked Sugar Ray Leonard this. Was there ever a time that first time, like you just talked about, multiple times getting kicked in the thigh, or the first time you get really punched in the face and you go, what am I doing? Like this, why? I mean, why am I getting punched in the face? There's so many or is there an adrenaline rush or is it like, okay, well, you got me, now I'm going to get you? Like, what happens in your mind?
I think it's more that mentality. Oh, you got me. Okay, here's one coming back at you. Certainly one of the first things I had to get used to. And I was working back then with a guy named Eric Paulson. He fought in the UFC, he fought in Japan a lot, in Shuto. He's a great catch wrestling guy, which catch wrestling is something I focus on. It's all the same submissions, but it's more of a wrestler's mindset. Mm-hmm. And the first thing he did with me when I was getting ready to fight Vitor Belfort in my second show. And, he's a great boxer. He was blasting through everybody using his striking. And so Eric helped me. He stuffed me in a corner in the gym where I had nowhere to go and just started punching me. And it forced me to, I couldn't run. Where was I going to go? I had to learn to defend. I had to learn to use my hands, my elbows, move my head, keep my eyes open, which is, counterintuitive. Our fight or flight kicks in, and you want to turn your head away when somebody's trying to punch you in the face. And it really forced me with that corner drill to make friends with that and kind of get used to it and see stuff coming and defend myself there. So it was a brilliant drill. And I've done that with some fighters I've worked with who are a little skittish, hadn't made friends with the fact that, we punch each other. That's what we do.
That's an interesting.
I think that's the perfect example. I feel like Brock never really made friends with that. And I think if he had done the corner drill and made friends with getting punched, he might have been a little more effective for a little longer.
Why do you think he didn't go there and commit fully to that aspect of it?
Sometimes his mindset. I think he created his own little gym. He was the big fish in that pond, and just never kind of made friends with it. And I think we saw that when he got hit by Cain Velasquez, certainly with Overeem. Those guys that came out and really blasted him, it changed his, like you said, he got punched in the face and he's like, what am I doing here?
Right. How often do you have a strategy going into a fight? And I assume you do, and then have to change it on the fly. And the second part of that for me is, has there been a particular fighter that's been the hardest to figure out, like in the moment, like they kept you off balance a lot, no matter what approach you took to them?
Yeah, I definitely was one of those fighters that tried to come up with a technical game plan. Each and every guy you face poses different problems, and they're problems that you have to solve. That's why I always call MMA kinetic chess. It's a chess match in the physical realm. So you figure out, and you need a good team, guys that are going to be honest and not blow smoke up your hind end, but be honest about your strengths and weaknesses and the genuine strengths and weaknesses of your opponent. And you try to figure out how to put yourself in the best position to win the fight. And that takes, putting yourself in those worst case scenarios. You're fighting a guy like Tito Ortiz. He's got a very strong wrestling background. If you're watching any tape on him, 95% of the fights he wins, he takes guys down, he pins them down, and he pounds on them. So you better be ready to deal with his takedowns and scramble and get up off the bottom, or there's a fair chance you're going to put yourself in a position to lose.
Right.
And that's a perfect example of my mindset going into that fight. I knew it was going to boil down to wrestling, so I put myself in a bunch of wrestling positions. I let guys take me down, find ways to work my way back up, scramble, get back up, and change that scenario. Take him out of the area he's strongest. And then make him fight me in those other areas. Put him on his back. See how he does down there. And I think that was the difference in that fight. Kevin Randleman. I knew anytime I fought another wrestler, that in some ways was going to neutralize my advantage with my wrestling experience. Thankfully, I had been putting myself on my back, learning the jiu-jitsu, learning how to protect myself and be effective from that position. When I fought Kevin, he took me down the first and the second round. I spent most of the round on my back, almost armbarred him, managed to survive, not take too much damage. And in the third round, I took him down. And he had not spent much time there. He did the dying cockroach. The feet and the hands went straight up in the air, allowed me to climb the full mount, and the fight was over. So the difference was in that preparation and kind of putting yourself in worst case scenarios and then sharpening the tools that you think are going to put you in the best position to win.
Yeah, it's really like life, right? Like if you work on the thing, you can be lazy and just say, I'm good at this, so I'll win with this skill set, and you ignore the others that you need. You're setting yourself up for failure. But if you spend a lot of time working on your weaker skill sets, and they become just as strong, then you're a complete fighter, a complete person, and you really are difficult to beat on any given day with any fighter, because whatever they throw at you, you're gonna have an answer for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the fun about MMA. Is we get those matchups every once in a while. It's like, man, who's going to win this? He's really good at this and not bad in all these other areas. How is this going to settle? Who's going to go out and force their will on the other guy? And I think that's one of the things I love about mixed martial arts. Yeah.
Well, I could, listen, I could talk to you all day because while I'm a big fan of MMA, I don't do it. And there's just this process. I'm a big process geek, and I want to talk to you about having been in the Army. So I'd love to get you on again and talk some more about, you've done so many amazing things. But the film is the Manson Brothers Midnight Zombie Massacre. It's in theaters and on demand now. And there's not another film out there like it. And you do great with comedy, by the way. You're a natural with it. And so keep that up.
Thank you. I had a blast and definitely enjoyed the process of making this film. And I did feel like there was an opportunity for me to step outside the box a little and do some comedy, which most people see as an action guy or a guy that came from fighting. So this was a fun change for me.
Yeah, no, it's good, and I hope you do a sequel. But anyway, everybody check out the movie. And Randy, it's great to have you on, and congrats on all the success, and keep up all the good work.
Thanks, man. Much appreciated.
All right, there you go, Randy Couture. Great conversation with him. So glad I had him on. I hope you liked it, and we got another great guest coming up next week. So check it out and send the podcast around. And we always want to keep building the following. Appreciate you guys checking it out, and we'll see you next week.